So hey guys, battle report we got for you here. We have Jesse, who's actually playing Eldar versus Justin Cook, who's playing something pretty interesting.
Yeah, he's playing a nid Necron build that he wanted to test out at the start of the edition.
Yes.
So it's a new Company Apocalypse rule set. It allows them to bring allies that are Company Apocalypse. They have to be deployed 12 inches apart. Now in this case he has 2 flyers, so it doesn't matter, they're in reserve.
Yeah.
And then they follow Desperate Ally rules. However, the Desperate Allies follow the allies. The convenience rule is just kind of a chain up. So that means they are objective secured still and all that.
Yep.
There's pretty much no real downside to taking them.
No, you talked to Justin before the game. He's leaving all the crons in reserve, so he doesn't have to worry about the deployment rule. And it's one of those things to where if you're skilled enough to where you can kind of measure out to make sure those guys aren't within, I believe it's like the 6 inches for the Desperate Ally animosity of sorts, you can really kind of take away a lot of the disadvantages. That's something to take a look at for 7th edition, to where you go, well, I can play Demons and Grey Knights together. That's totally flavorful.
So in our particular game, I have Eldrad, who got invisibility on his first roll of the game.
Which a lot of people have been talking about with the new edition.
Yeah, so the new invisibility is really good. I went for that in my first roll to go in that 20-man unit of Guardians. It is Relic. And I have Warp Spiders kind of get up and jump on the Relic first. Now, I chose to go first, so Justin's utilizing his Warlord trading roll that allows his Warlord plus 3 units to outflank. So he's actually outflanking both Hive Tyrants and 2 Crones.
And that's in the strategic list for your Warlord traits. Because a lot of people talked about, when we were looking through the rule book during our coverage the past weekend, about how no one used to ever really go for it. But now strategic has a lot of cool things. You can cause pinning checks right off the bat to kind of hold people down.
I think is by far the best, especially now that scoring Warlord's no longer a thing because he's scoring anyway.
Yeah.
So Justin, because of my firepower, I deployed first, and I got to choose if I wanted to go first or second. So because of my firepower, if he left his flying MCs on the ground, with the range that I have and the fact that there is no night fight maximum range anymore, he was at a severe disadvantage. So he chose to reserve those things, allowing me to go first with no questions asked, no problems. It really kind of utilize my mobility to try to help me in this matchup. So what he does is he deploys his 2 3-man units of warriors behind a wall that can't really be seen, and then all of his gaunts. I deploy 60 gaunts.
He just
kind of wraps the board edge because I have an outflanking warwalker squad. But my movement's very simple. I redeploy a couple of my wave separate servers so I can get better shot. I just unleash into Gaunts and Necron warriors, and the Warp Spiders jump up onto the objective.
Which is huge, because now, with everything being scoring, you can just walk that unit right up and just take the Relic.
Yep. So that's exactly what I did. I walked them up. My game plan was, since I rolled invisibility, walk them up, get the Relic on the Warp Spiders on turn 1. Turn 2, drop the Relic off to Eldrad, who's in the unit of 20 Guardians, pick up the Relic, and then just cast invisibility all game.
Yeah.
And that way he had the Snapfire to shoot at me. I had Conceal on my Warlock, so if I saw the die or 2 left, that was fine. And so I had to Conceal, and since he had to Snapfire at me, he's not really safe coming to the ground where I can light him up. And he can't flame me with all those Crones.
Which is huge because, one of the things we talked about with the new edition and the new Psychic phase is a lot of armies that rely on things like Divination, Prescience, everything like that, if you don't get it, the unit can't cast it again. So it's one of those things to where you can pretty much bank on having invisibility, but since you have so many dice at this point, you can pretty much throw all of your dice at invisibility, hope it goes off. If you perils, and that's the risk that you take. But the upside of invisibility is so high.
Funny thing is, in 3 of my turns, I perils. And we were playing the Ghost Helm as the way it reads, that you can expend a warp charge to ignore the effects of a perils. So 3 of my perils, I actually rolled a 6. And Eldrad got a 3+ invulnerable save, which already has Fleshbane, Armorbane, or Fleshbane, Smash, all that fun
stuff. He taps into the perils of the warp and literally just hulks out.
So I didn't even have to do it. But normally I was getting D6 plus 5 dice versus his D6 plus 4 dice.
Yeah.
So because of that, I was getting a little bit of advantage. And I was able to throw all of my dice -1 essentially at invisibility relatively safely, and just use that one for the ghost sound. Plus, Eldrad also generates a warp charge afterwards.
Because it seems like the way that the new psychic rules go is if you need something to go off, you can pretty much take your entire load of dice and make sure it goes off. But the problem is you're not going to see these units that are pretty much based on, I'm going to have 3 buffs running concurrently, and it's going to be a Death Star that's going to run right down the field.
Yep. So, you know, I also am running Wave Serpents, and I was utilizing their Jink. They are so unbelievably durable with Jink up. And their Hollow Field. So I had Hollow Field, Jink, and Serpent Shield.
Yeah.
So with the downside being that you have to snap fire, and I'm already shooting at a bunch of flyers, it's not really much of a downside for me. It just increased survivability. So you see his reserves come in. His one Flyrant, who's not his Warlord, and a Crone come in on the side of my army. His Warlord comes in on the other side.
Yeah.
He uses both those Hive Tyrants to kind of pick up First Blood and eliminate the Warwalker squadrons. Knew it was going to happen. That's why I was trying to kill off the Warriors or Gaunt Squad to try to get First Blood.
Well, we talked about it before. There's never going to be a game where you're not going to lose units, but one of the things that you need to do is make sure that you get your points worth of effectiveness from that unit. So when you talk about going up, getting the relic, and already kind of determining the way that the game's going to go, not that big of a deal if you have 1 unit off the table, especially when you put it at the forefront of your deployment.
Yeah, so the Warwalkers both dropped. His other Crones come in. You know, this is kind of the setup for his all-in turn.
Yeah.
You know, he really needs to make something happen. It's really hard for him to take on that Guardian blob. Because, again, those Crones can't really hurt him because they can't fire their flame templates.
Yeah, which is an interesting wrinkle for you guys out there. Something as well is you can't snap fire templated weapons. So they can't technically hit the Guardians who have the relic right now.
Yep.
Which is huge.
And I stayed far enough away from my own Wave Serpents. Just because I knew Justin, you know, Justin's a good player and all. He could target the Wave Serpent, hit the Wave Serpent, still hit Guardians. So I stayed far enough away that wasn't a major threat. He really needs to make Eldrad drop it. Now the problem is, the downside to having the relic is I can't run with it.
Yeah.
So even though the unit can run, Eldrad can't. So it's really hard for me to get Eldrad into the cover where I want to be and be able to go to ground for a 2+ save because I have Shroud. And with that being, you know, that being a thing, Eldrad's kind of vulnerable out here.
Yeah, I mean, look at the board the way it is now, and you see Justin's kind of, he has to blow everything he has on that side of the field, where pretty much the Gaunts are just sitting there going like, well, we're a unit 2, guys. We're just gonna sit back here, and not do much.
So I mean, he shoots in with pretty much everything. This is the Tentaclid and
the Haywire Tech.
No, and the Flamer actually takes off a scatter laser. He causes 2 wounds at Eldrad, kills a bunch of Guardians. I just found, like, Eldrad found 2 Lookout Sirs, and both Lookout Sirs found 3 up and vulnerable save. I mean, it happens. It's the name of the game.
Yep.
So
Variance.
right there, I was like, oh my god. And, you know, it was so close. But because I didn't drop the relic there, I'm still relatively safe. My troops are still safe because I still have Eldrad. So my Guardians themselves are safe. So now I kind of go into my all-in. So I unleash all but 1 unit of Dire Avengers and just kind of go, I need to take out both Hive Tyrants.
Yeah.
If I take out both Hive Tyrants, I'm in a good spot.
Well, especially because you consider, I mean, Eldrad took such a beating. If Eldrad takes the beating, then the Guardians just kind of pop back up. And then you talk about them, they're going to get Vector Struck, they're going to get unloaded into, like, and they aren't the most resilient of units, to be honest.
So the Dire Avenger, between the Dire Avenger and the Wave Serpents, I managed to kill off both Hive Tyrants, which is huge. He also fails a one-eye open roll here with that Harpy, which we actually look up and we find out that you have to move in a straight line. So the Harpy and one of the units actually fail one-eye open.
Yeah.
So he will reposition a Harpy a little bit later in this movement phase. But that's one of the things, like, he had to all in there and he had to take that risk. And I mean, it's a 1 in 6 chance.
Yeah.
There was about 6 units there, so it kind of balances out. Yeah. So, but what ends up happening is, it now forces him into a position he doesn't really want to be in. His Harpy is now off on its own over here, flying away from the unit, and its good angles doesn't really get it much. It's pivoting angles. The other Night Scythe, same thing. He basically has to fly off the table and try to come back.
Which by then, I mean, anything that's left over is prime fire. You look at especially the unit of warriors right in the center of that Eldar fire, they're not going to last.
No. So that's a problem. But, you know, it's basically coming down to Eldrad only has 1 wound left. He just needs to get lucky. If he can get me to drop the relic and I lose invisibility, it's a completely different game because those Harpies will grind up
Yeah.
the Guardians. And now the problem is I've now committed. I've now committed. I did what I needed to do to
You have a line of play, and you got a little unlucky, but the problem is you kind of have to play toward your out. Your out being Eldrad has to survive. I need to hinge my game plan on Eldrad surviving. Eldrad survives, we're in business. We're good. Eldrad doesn't survive, I think I'm pretty much dead in the water anyway. So you have to play to your outs.
So, I mean, basically right now, I still have all the firepower left that is the Wave Serpents. The amount of fire that they put out, plus, again, that Jink. The fact that if I move, I get a 3+ Jink. That's ridiculous. So I use the Wave Serpents to clean up the Necron Warriors, plus the Guardians. And, I just kind of start picking off his things. So now, again, he's still in that position. If he can get Eldrad to drop it, I just have to try not to fail Lookout Sirs. I keep trying to burrow back further and further. I put a couple other models closer. Problem is he has a mobility that I haven't gotten a really good run, like a really good move yet, that can really bury Eldrad. So he has a maneuverability with all these flyers to make sure that Eldrad's the closest model. And that's just what he does.
And we talked about this sort of idea that mobility is at such a premium, especially this edition when a lot of people are going to bring transports, a lot of people are going to be moving very fast. You need to be able to plan your turns out a little bit ahead, and you see that Justin kind of throws everything into the center, fails one of those one-eye open checks, and it kind of shunts his mobility a bit.
It does. He also goes, because of where he's at, he's basically putting himself in a position of, if I kill Eldrad, I want to be able to just clean that up. Yeah. So he glides with the bottom Harpy, he glides with the top Harpy, so that he can reposition himself for further follow-up turns.
Yeah.
He's kind of in a position where he's grasping at straws, and I'm like just grasping at him to keep Eldrad alive. If I keep Eldrad, I am so far ahead, but that's the thing. You drop the Relic,
it's anybody's game then.
Exactly, because that's 3 victory points. I have Warlord, but he would have Warlord. Yeah. The problem is it would basically come down to a flat tie, because he would be able to easily get Linebreaker, I could get Linebreaker, and then we would have no objective points. He would have Warlord.
And he already has First Blood.
Yeah.
That's something we need to take a look at.
Now, I mean, simultaneously with that, he has to. The nice thing I got going for me is in order to get Linebreaker, he has to put those guys on the bottom or on the ground. At which point, that Eldar shooting gets much more effective.
There's a bit of a game of chicken going on, because when he brings the creatures down from swooping to gliding, they're much easier to get hit as well. And when he disbarks all those guys from the night sides and stuff, they're pretty much fodder for the first turn, unless they can make their saves, which with that much shooting coming at them, statistically, probably not going to happen.
It's absolutely the biggest change that has come up since they added flying monstrous creatures. The fact that you can't glide and charge is pretty brutal. Like, you actually have to be a full game turn ahead of your opponent in everything you want to do in order for you to be able to effectively utilize that. Like, that means, at this point, Justin was never really playing from a point where he was ahead. And so he was never able to just kind of, okay, I'm going to go ground, I'm going to charge. Because that would have been something he could have tried to do, was just charge and just tie up the blob and just charge it with as many things as you can and go, okay, you're not going to hit and wound me that well, but I'm not going to hit you, but I'll wound you easy. Yeah. And hopefully I'll win combat, but like 2 or 3, you'll break, run, and I'll run you down.
Yeah, exactly.
Unfortunately, he's never in that position because he's never really playing that turn ahead where he can kind of bait that charge out.
Yeah, he can't really
and lose a unit and then charge in with 2 or 3. Especially since I still have all the firepower. Like, the Wave Serpent's firepower is still pretty amazing.
Especially when they don't have to snap fire. It's something they can just unload a full ballistic skill.
Yeah.
Too. It's absolutely huge.
So, I mean, he does a really good job of forcing me to jink, but because he's staying in the air, I have no qualms about jinking. Like, it's like, okay, I'll jink, I'll take my 3-up save. These night sights really aren't doing what they should be doing because of that.
Yeah. We look at it, and Justin played it very well to the mission, but unfortunately the mission just doesn't seem like it's up his Armulus alley.
No, well, it is and it isn't. Like, it's not a bad mission for him in general. However, I have the Warp Spiders, and them just scoring, everything. That's a major change in this edition.
Yeah, we take a look. That's probably the biggest thing that's going to affect a lot of the games in 7th edition. We take a look at the new Psychic phase. We took a look at Come the Apocalypse Allies. There's a ton of super exciting stuff that's going to be coming on in 7th edition, and we can't wait to bring you guys a few more battle reports.
Yep, can't wait.